Well, it seems like the more evidence we get in and the more videos that we find and the more interviews we hear, it seems like we open up more and more questions here to trying to determine the cause of the collapse here for the condo. But I think we're getting really close to it now. So if you remember, a few days ago we uploaded that video where the lady was touring the garage, and as this lady was walking through the garage looking for space number 17 over here, we were marking here on the chart, on the parking chart of the garage, where all the puddles were that we saw there. And then we saw patches on the ceiling with that really cheap plastic corrugated stuff that they use for roofs. Yeah, so we marked all that. And then I wanted to correct an error that I made here, because I told you folks that these were the 5 columns that failed, that brought the building down. And I was wrong. I was off by a row. I really should have put it here. One way you can see how I messed that up the other day was I didn't know that the parking spaces actually go past underneath the building. I thought that the building ended here, and I thought that the garage was just underneath the whole building. But what happened is, no, the building ends here, and then there's a sidewalk and landscaping and stuff over here. So these spaces are actually outside the building. So it all makes sense. I was just off by 20 feet. The reason why we made that error will be evident in a minute when I show you the fully populated slide. And a lot of it at times you have to come back to the base of the ramp and use that as your orientation to figure out where you really are, combined with looking at other videos and stuff. So, because I incorrectly identified the southern wall of the building, it's here. So let's go take a look at it in the other slide. Okay, so here we are in the other slide where I've cleaned everything up and made it a lot easier to see what's going on. So remember, I moved the 5 from here, and it was actually these 5. And here's how you tell. Because we know the building, this is the shear wall for the main building, and this collapsed building is right here, and we know that it sheared away from that wall, and that this was the southern wall. The pool deck was all up in here, up top, and then there was a little, kind of a little courtyard area right here, small, very small. And so this outline represents the exterior wall of the building that collapsed. And then this part here is that skinny part of the building that was left standing for about 7 seconds after the collapse, and it twisted and buckled and then fell over and pancaked at the same time. Okay, so that's why it's easier to see now how this is the exterior wall right there going all the way around. This is the building that survived right here. And then this is the other part of it that survived. I just didn't outline it. And the reason why this one survived is because it has these thick, the shear walls there, it has beams and everything, and it has thicker columns too. So when this building sheared away from it, it didn't pull the building over like it did here. This part fell down and then it dragged this guy down with it. So I had to orient everything from the bottom of the ramp. And then, so we went back and we looked at every photo we could find, all of the aerial photos, the drone photos, and ground photos that people took of this area. And I wanted to identify which of these columns were still standing after this punching shear failure of the pool deck, which is what happened here. See the shaded yellow area is the entire area of the pool deck that collapsed. And it collapsed by way of punching shear, which is a common occurrence actually in garages, where the slab just shears around each one of the poles right here and here and here and here and here, and just falls down around it. The whole deck just fell down almost intact there. See, so for example, I was able to look at pictures like this one and see these are still standing here, as well as some of the planters are still here. You see that right along there? You see, and then other pictures like this one clearly show us which ones were standing, and now I can see all of the white stripes, and I know that everything here is down in the garage, and that there was a clean shear of the parking deck right here, up against space number 48. And the planters here are still there. Security cameras, these two are still standing. So you can glean a lot from some of these photos. And this is probably one of my favorite photos of all here, because it's the most valuable one, because I can glean a lot of information about what happened here, and like with these planters right here. And you can see here's space number 42. So it's giving us a lot of clues here. Space 72 and 73 down in the garage. So here's 73, 74, 75, 76. So this fireman right now is standing in space 75, which I think is right near the epicenter of what happened. Okay, now this is that famous tourist video that we've all seen. Now, many people don't realize that in addition to this one video here, there was actually a second video shot. It has audio, and you can hear them talking about one girl thought it was an accident. So they heard the noise and came out too to hear what was going on. Let's listen in. Here's a few more seconds from the first person's video again. And that's all the video we got on that. But I need to take a moment here to make a correction here for you. On my first video on the root cause, I looked at this scene here and I misjudged what was happening. I thought this was a piece of the beam inside there, maybe delaminating or something. But upon a closer examination, I looked outside during the daytime and realized it was just weird reflections off of the sign and the sodium vapor lights. That's what happens when you edit videos at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so the way we can tell what was going on down in the garage, and this was taken about 7 minutes before the building collapsed. So the person's looking straight down the ramp because they heard noise. Right here, this is your side wall of the ramp as you're going down the ramp. And this is the column at the bottom of the ramp. And we're going to show you this in a second. This is column number 14. And then right opposite column 14 is column 27. So let's go take a look at that real quick. So you remember we said they were standing out over this way. They looked down the ramp, and at the bottom of the ramp is that column there for 14, for space number 14. That's that first pole that you see there. So this column right here is this column right here. And then the second one in the background here that you see is this column right here. So that is the column for space number 27. So they were looking straight down the line, and you're seeing one column, two column. Now, here's something interesting. Let's go back and look at the picture. Here's what's wrong, folks. As we see column for 14 and 17, the next one is supposed to be right over here, and guess what? It's gone, it's missing, and here's that broken pipe that's spilling out a bunch of water here. Here's how we can prove my theory on this, because here's 89th Street, a couple of blocks north. This is the North Towers. This is the sister property, which has the same design and everything. And as we zoom into the garage right here, okay, so coming back here after I've enhanced it a bit, I've brightened it up so we can see what's going on back there. Here's your ramp. There's your column 14 at the bottom of the ramp. There's column 27. So you see, we're supposed to be able to see 4 columns going down there. And there's another one way, way in the back, but it's just too far back and dark. So on the failed tower, you can see we're missing this crucial third column right here. See, so if you compare both entrances side by side at the garage there, this is the North Towers, and there's their column number 14 at the bottom of the ramp, and here's our column 14 at the bottom of the ramp. And then right behind it should be the one for number 27, and right here is our number 27. And then immediately behind that one, you can see the other one, the one that's missing. And that should be right here, see? So what it looks like to me is that column is now gone. And I think this is it here laying across the floor. Because it looks like you have the yellow at the bottom, like you do, the stripes, see? And then it turns white. And I believe that's the column laying down. I don't know if this is a planter that was up on the deck or not. It doesn't make sense to me that a planter would survive that drop and be intact. So that's the only thing. I'm not sure if it could be optical illusion. It could be 3 or 4 different things piled up. But one thing's for sure, we know that 7 minutes before the building collapsed, this happened. Because the people heard the noise and they went running over to film down there to see what it was. You can see there's debris all over the road here inside the garage. This is the main driveway into the garage, right? But you can see it's fairly clear. Right after when you get off the bottom of the ramp, it looks fairly clear there. So that says to me that that everything is aligning with what I'm saying. So if we come back here to the drawing, it looks like all of that debris was probably somewhere in this area. That's my guess. Because of that vantage point and the way when they zoomed in and they have a telephoto view, everything sort of flattens together. But I'm willing to bet that the pipe, which I originally thought was over here, is probably back here somewhere. So we know that a bunch of rubble ended up right here 7 minutes before the collapse. So, all right, so let's say the pool deck collapsed at that point. That alone, most engineers would probably tell you that's probably not going to tear down an entire building. However, one thing I noticed here is that as this came collapsing and shearing, if it caused any instability in any of these 2 or 3 right here, that could have started something. It could have yanked a column right out from under itself, made it buckle, and then it just stressed and strained under the load, plus whatever else was going on with all that water. All right, so here's the view from out on the street level here, and I want to address a concern here. A number of people left really nasty comments on my previous videos saying, oh, come on, you're full of crap. There was no tourists out at 1 o'clock in the morning. You expect us to believe that there's just tourists just hanging out at a pool at 1 o'clock in the morning? And I'm like, yeah, so this is what they saw. So here's the entrance to the garage, and I want to plant myself right at the same view they had, which is like this. See, what really happened was that the tourists, and by the way, the city of Miami doesn't sleep. They just had a court case on bars being open till 4 a.m. All right, so when you're on South Beach at night, everybody's out. They don't come here to sleep. But they were hanging out at their pool at this hotel across the street, and probably hanging out on these chairs, and they hear the noise across the street. And you can see it's not even 100 feet probably to go across the street. So they shoot down this way to see what was going on. And while they were talking about going, who should we contact, should we do anything about it, then it collapsed right in front of them. The other question I have, tell me what you guys think about this. Let me know down in the comments. What do you think about this fitness center? Because it's right over here. You see, here it is in the architect's original drawings. So the fitness center sits right over the driveway that's directly in front of spaces 81, 82, 83, 84. Remember that magical space number 82? And let's go take a look at what it looks like inside that fitness center. Okay, so here's a look inside the fitness center. And here's the window, so you know that it's right on that southern edge of the building there. It's right up against the windows. So these machines I'm not so concerned about. They might be heavy, who knows. They're all right next to each other, though. And just think, when you have somebody jogging on this all day long and the pounding, so keep that in mind. But look at this machine that's got to have, like, I don't know how many stacks of weights they have here, probably 2 or 3 of them. That's got to be a lot, plus the incredible heavy weight of these machines as well. And then all of these weights that are over here on the wall in the room there. So that would certainly have me worried when it's sitting on top of a compromised concrete slab. So now when you come back and look, boy, it's no small coincidence, in my opinion, that fitness center happens to be right here. And by the way, that second garage video that we showed you, that was at the tail end of the video we did the other day of the garage, where she was filming the water running down the wall and dripping on the electrical box. I believe that was right here, because based on the video, her car was backed in with a wall on the left and a wall on the back. And this is really the only place I can see in the entire garage where there would be that case. So I think that lady was in spot 82. And remember, she shot that video 3 years ago of water running down the wall here. And we don't know if it was coming off the pipe or off the ceiling, like we showed you in the video. But something, all of these things that just keep adding more and more to the mystery here. Okay? So that's why sometimes a failure mode might not be just one thing. It could be a combination of things going on. And we do know that this area did seem to have some water problems. Unfortunately, nobody has gotten us good video of what was happening in here, in this spot here. So when we showed you that garage analysis video, the lady was walking right through here towards the area that we think where it failed. So as you can see here, she's walking there, and there's the guy walking alongside her. Look at all the water all over the place there. There's water in space number 76.
I got it, 17.
Which is right there at the bottom. See, here's another thing I don't understand. If you look at the landscape plan from the original architect design, so this is page 15 of 336, as you see up here, as we downloaded this from the city of Surfside. We got this was online the next day after the collapse, so kudos to the city for getting this out quickly. But look at this plan, and where do you see any of those extra planters, the big square ones? You don't see them here. Somebody added those later. So this here is the minutes from the Homeowners Association Board of Directors meeting from last October 2020. And in this here, they gave a presentation of what the engineering company and the contractors have already started working on for the 40-year recertification. And you're going to find some interesting stuff in here. So if you come down here to page 43, what the engineer did was he picked certain points around the property that he wanted the contractor to go and take samples and actually, slice sectionals out of their 3 feet by 3 feet sectionals. So I want to zoom in and focus on what happened here, because this is going to come into play for us in a few minutes, I think. This will give us a big glimpse into what really happened. Right over here, they cut a 3 by 3 section. Here it is right here with the notes, and there's the 3 by 3 foot section. They cut this out. This is right at the pool deck, right where it meets the curb here up against the landscaping thing. So this is the exterior wall of the building, right? There's your shear wall that we use for reference now. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are our 5 columns that failed, that we definitely know failed. They're gone now. Apparently, the engineer said, go cut in here and let's take a look in this area, what was going on. And then they took a core sample just to the left of it. And it looks to be about a 3-inch wide cylinder that they did. So with this core sample now, I'm assuming they went all the way through the pool deck. I think this is the top of the pool deck, and went all the way through and then punched all the way through to the garage and probably had to patch it back up or something, or plug it later. Now I'm a little concerned as why this is crumbling right here. This is the 9-inch slab. So they're telling you the stack up here. It's a 9.5-inch structural slab. This is the slab that's at the bottom of the pool deck, right? And then somewhere in here is supposed to be like the sand and the tile and mortar, and it says 1 3/8 inch thick tile, which is strange because normally for a paver, I prefer to use the, 2 3/8 inch? That's what you've got there for that sample, and that's where they took it. Okay, now there's 2 things here that have me very worried here, folks. See the Bob's Barricade? That's where they did the repair. Now, the repair was supposedly done, I don't know, before the October meeting, but this picture was taken in November on the MLS, and it's still sitting there. So why is it still there? So the engineer gave them clear instructions to patch that all back up, and I'm saying, hey, what if they didn't? This could have something to do with the collapse. It could be pure speculation on my point, but water may have gotten in there and accelerated the issue. And then the other question I have is that why is it that every picture we see of this pool deck from all the different real estate agents, do we see pooling water or just lots of moisture on those bricks? So I've long been suspecting there's something more here that meets the eye. Okay, it's pretty close to the wall there, right? And here's the scene, and I want you to pay attention to this Bob's Barricade right here. He's going to come into play again. Remember that. So here's what they looked at here. And if we try to get a close-up look at it, and I zoomed into it here to see what they did. So anyway, here's what they did and looked at and measured the depth. And to me, it looks like this sand is just, it's moist. It's really wet, soggy. I'm wondering why that was crumbling when the other cores came out, pretty nice looking, like this one here. See that? This is the stamped concrete deck where those cars were parked that collapsed down into the garage. And according to them, what they found in the report, they found that they don't think that there was any waterproofing here, which there should have been over. This is the concrete slab, I'm assuming, right below it. And I'm seeing water right here. So I don't know if they used any water to cool down the saw when they made the cut, or if this is later or what. But here's another Bob's Barricade. Now keep in mind, this wasn't the engineering firm doing this, okay? This was not Morabito. This was the contractor. And also, it was the contractor, you can see right here, the contractor is the one that exposed all of that rebar inside the pool room here. Remember I showed you on those pictures, like right here, on the first video we did on the possible root cause? All of that exposed rebar was actually done by the contractor, because you're supposed to explore into the concrete and see how far deep you need to go to make the repairs. And I think they were saying, well, you might have to close the pool because you have to get at it from the inside too. I don't think anything ever came out of that. And certainly this wasn't the cause anyway. This was not the cause. even though a lot of trolls keep coming on our videos and commenting, why are you telling everybody it's the pool? You don't know what you're talking about. They're just idiots. See, and here's the actual landscaping plan for the whole building. And you can see it looks completely different now than it does on here. So take a look at this photo here that shows the deck from above, and then down here even from below you can see all of these different things that were added. The other thing I wanted to point out also is when they did the original waterproofing, was it done as a lay down roll out membrane, and were there seams that they needed to make sure they were taped up, or was it like a painted on material? And what do they do at the edges? See, because at the edges is where it's really important. You can't just lay it down flat because water will seep out around the edges. This is the same thing when you do the drain pan in your shower. We put down that shower pan liner, and when we form the basis for our drain, that shower pan liner has to curve up and go 6 inches up the wall in the shower. So we don't know if they did that here. So here on page 30 of the floor plans, you can see, we'll zoom in a little bit, but you can see the way they numbered the rows here. It seemed to be different on every page, so I think that's what threw us off at the beginning. See how they have this matrix here with the rows on one side, the columns on the other side here. All right, so let's wrap it all up. Let's put it all together and show you exactly what we think happened. So all of the years of water getting through the pool deck made it crack. There was a lot of cracks on the ceiling that they even tried to repair unsuccessfully. So we think that most of the pool deck collapsed as one piece, but yet somehow it busted this particular column and it fell over, as we saw by the tourist video here, right? So here's the outside of the building, and this is the south border of the building where those 5 columns collapsed. So this column is actually under the pool deck, right? And it's outside the building. So how could that have brought the whole building down? This column, the one that we think failed, how did this bring down any of these other columns or cause this whole building to fail? Well, first, let's take a look at where this one is. Let's try to find it on the outside. Now, pay attention, folks, because this is where it starts to get pretty shocking for us. And let's figure out where we are. These are the 5 columns that collapsed. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And as we always do, we reference them off of that shear wall right there. So there's our 5 columns. Right? And so if we're saying that this is the column outside the building that fell, remember, 1 column south of the building, this is it. And when you look at the engineer's drawing from 2020, from last year, that puts that column right smack dab in the middle of this planter here. And look at this, coincidentally, right next to this site where they did that excavation. We don't know when they did the excavation, but it was obviously before the October meeting of the HOA. And what makes things even scarier, folks, as I pointed out to you earlier, is this was taken in November of 2020 by a real estate agent and posted online for a unit for sale. And yet here we are in November, and this Bob's Barricade is still here. And I don't know what this is that they've got over that area, but I just can't tell what it is. But why is it still there? Why wasn't it already sealed back up and everything and repaired? And is it leaking right now? So these are a whole bunch of questions. This could be absolutely nothing. It might lead absolutely nowhere. But you know what? As an engineer, when I go looking for why something fails, and I start examining things from a bazillion different angles and look at all the evidence, I always see abnormalities somehow in the area of where we're looking. And here's an abnormality. Do you ever see a scene like this on a pool deck? No, you don't. So it could be nothing, but I need to point that out because it just happens to be right next to where this is the column, and it's right here in the middle of this planter underneath it, holding it up in the garage, and it's the space between 27 and 28. Let me show you on the PowerPoint, just so we keep making sure we're aligned the same way. It's this column right here. See, it's the first column south of the building. It's 20 feet approximately south of the building. So if we leave here and go back to the photo, back on the photo we can see it's 20 feet from the building, and as we showed you in the engineer's drawing, it's right there. Now, looking back in the lady's video from the garage, on the column on the guy's right shoulder there, that's space number 76. That column survived. The column to his left, of his left shoulder, that is column number 28 for parking space 28. That one also survived. But it's the one to the left of 28, just outside the picture, that broke down. And I know we keep harping on this issue, but we have to really examine this whole area here, okay? This is pole 28, column number 28 for space 28 right here. And that's space 29 on the other side of this vehicle. This one survived, as we've seen from all of our pictures. We've showed this to you. We know this survived. And the pool is right there, okay? So the pool didn't have anything to do with this, as far as we can tell. But this is that column. The column between 27 and 28. This is space 27. This is space 28. This is the column between space 77 right here and 76 right here. Okay. This column we know is down. It's underneath the pile of rubble right now. We know this column fell down. This is the one we saw fall down from the tourist video. It was all over the floor and smashed in this area. But the reason why we think everything happened in this area is this was the area in the garage that seemed to have a lot of stuff going on, as we pointed out to you last week when we first showed you this garage video. The blistering paint here, which is probably filled with water, and the patch there, so that we know there was all sorts of cracks and stalactites, which means those are water leaking through from above that has formed stalactites over years. And these were likely some of the stalactites that the engineer found in 2018. So we think that the pool deck collapsed right here, okay, and it tore this column down, and possibly this at the same time. We just don't know. But we know that everything collapsed right in here and came straight down. Now, right here, I did a very important freeze frame for you here. I want to take a look at something here and just remind you that, there was numerous cracks, numerous places where it was probably leaking, and just a lot of paint peeling all over the place. And there's a couple of things I don't like here, and I could be wrong. Just, I'm not the guy that engineered this thing, so I don't know how well this beam is supposed to work. But I don't like the fact that the beam came into the side of these columns. That gives me a not so warm and fuzzy feeling, because if you look at these other beams, like the one on column number 26, notice how the beam is on top of the load where it belongs. It's the column is supporting that load and it's going straight down. Here, whatever load you have is a shearing force on these columns. So somebody tell me if I'm wrong. Anybody in the comments, if you want to leave comments and let us know. Here's over here by 15 and 16. See that beam right there is also on top. The other thing here that we couldn't quite tell, a couple of the other frames were a little sharper, but see right here where I'm pointing, that crack there, is it trying to delaminate there from the ceiling, or was it built integral to this slab? We don't know that. But look at this. Take a look at the bottom edge of this beam, guys. Am I the only one here who thinks it's curving, like it looks like it's bending, like it's under stress? So the bottom of this beam is under tension, while the top of the beam is under compression because too much weight load up above, Now, it could be the lens from the cell phone just causing distortion, but I think that all of this is the crux of the whole matter. So all of the engineers that are wondering, well, how could one column right here outside the building, remember, this is the edge of the building here. You're 20 feet out, the planter's above us. How could taking out this one column pull everything out? Well, look what happens. If you lose this column, what's holding up this side of the beam now? And that drops everything. So my guess is this column fell down. The building sat there for 7 minutes or so while everything here got weaker and weaker as the downward forces here kept pushing on it. Now, this is the real important part here. I think, and this is our poll from 2728, the one that we think collapsed. This, I believe, is the end of the pool deck. I think the pool deck stops here, and that this is where it all dropped. So it possibly disconnected itself here from the first floor slab. And this could be the crux of where everything just happened and ripped apart. And even in this view, the bottom of the beam still looks slightly bowed. And keep in mind, this was shot almost a year ago. Well, actually, I think it was a year ago. This was shot in July 2020. if I remember correctly. So there you have it, folks. This is our current working theory. And hey, let us know in the comments what you think and whether you agree with this. And stay tuned, because as more videos and more testimony comes to light and more information comes to light, we'll be able to refine what we think really happened. So thanks so much for joining us, folks, and we'll see you, as usual, on the next one.